ramping it up really quickly, by the way. Well, the state told residents that they needed to start making sacrifices. First up, don't charge your electric car because it's going to overload the grid. But that wasn't enough.
Close the drapes to the extent you can, or blinds, and pre-cool your home, and make sure that that thermostat's above 78 degrees. Still feels cool beyond words. I walked in at 78 degrees and felt like I needed a jacket.
Oh, yeah. Let's see that video. Now, this is all part of a larger and far more alarming trend, because in Colorado last week, about 22,000 people were blocked from using their own thermostats. Xcel Energy customers received messages saying that their temperatures were locked because of an energy emergency, and they couldn't override what Xcel was setting them at. Now, the company threatened to do it all over again. We've had a hot summer this summer, and we're going to see more opportunities for these programs to be used. Yeah, it's happening across the pond as well.
We see there's a global scarcity of energy. So whatever we do, one thing is for sure, we have to save electricity, but we have to save it in a smart way. So what we have to do is flatten the curve and avoid the peak demands.
Oh, she's going all Fauci there with flattening the curve. Now, this is what happens, though, when you rely on other countries as your main source of oil and gas. Now, Russia, they just continued to toy with the EU, dangling this promise of opening Nord Stream 1. And because these leaders were bullied by, a Swedish teen, their citizens may freeze this winter. Then there's the fertilizer issue. Last year, Sri Lanka tried to go all organic in terms of farming by banning synthetic fertilizers and pesticides, which just led to a surge in food prices and then food shortages. In the Netherlands, they're facing the same sort of issues over an order to cut emissions. It sparked massive protests. We covered some of this over the summer by Dutch farmers. And then earlier this week, it led to the agriculture minister abruptly resigning. So when Biden, Jennifer Granholm and company say that we're transitioning to a cleaner future, what they're really saying is they've added America's name to a growing global suicide pact. Joining me now is Tucker Carlson, host of Tucker Carlson Tonight and Tucker Carlson Originals on Fox Nation. His latest two-part series, Transgressive, The Cult of Confusion, is available now. Tucker, we're going to get to your new series in just a moment, but these aren't isolated incidents. It's easy to report on them as such. This is happening in San Francisco, this is happening in Colorado, then in Britain, in France. But this is a global consensus building that we have to lower everybody's consumption and then standard of living.
Well, the global consensus is that a small group of people need to take control of energy. And energy is civilization. You don't have civilization without it. You know, civilizations grow, societies prosper with cheap energy, and they contract and wither without it. It's really that simple. So if you give control of your energy to someone, that person controls you completely. So energy is control. And I think we've had cheap energy for so long, we were energy independent about 20 minutes ago, that people don't understand how threatening this is and how close we are to being under the complete and total control of people who wish us ill.
Well, Tucker, when we think about electric vehicles, the point of electric vehicles in the minds of many is to limit how far people can travel. I mean, maybe someday batteries will be, have longer mileage spans and so forth. But right now, for most electric cars, you can travel 250, 350 miles on one full charge.
Right.
Well, that limits how far people can go. That in and of itself is a limitation on the freedom of movement, which we're frankly guaranteed in our founding documents. Not anymore, apparently.
It's an attack on individual autonomy. By the way, they can also be turned off remotely without your compliance, right? And you can also be denied access to the electricity grid, as they just did in California. Sorry, the grid doesn't work, it's down. No, changing out, making illegal the gasoline engine is the single biggest change in the way Americans will live in our lifetimes. 10x. I mean, there's no bigger change than this. We're all sort of sitting there and be like, no, it's a good idea. By the way, electric vehicles are terrible for the environment. And I'm not talking about carbon emissions. The amount of mining required to get an electric vehicle far outstrips what you need to buy a Chevy, to make a Chevy Tahoe. So, like, the whole thing is a scam. It's only about control.
Now, Tucker, we have to move to this, two-part series on Fox Nation that you and your team have put together. It's called Transgressive, The Cult of Confusion. I want to show everybody a sneak peek. Watch.
Cults succeed because they make empty promises to wounded people.
It makes you cooler, hotter, and smarter than everyone else.
By changing your body. This is particularly appealing to lost teenagers. And the evangelists spreading that gospel are on TikTok.
Girls go online and they watch these videos now on TikTok. They're very well produced. They're very fun to watch. And the videos by trans influencers promise that if you just start a course of testosterone, everything's going to get a lot better. Your anxiety will get under control. Your depression, you're going to feel great. And these girls are in a lot of very real pain. They're looking for a solution.
Now, Tucker, this is an issue that you and I, as parents, as Americans, share a similar level of passion and deep concern about. What did you learn new when you were making this?
That children across the country are being sexually mutilated, and that none of us are saying anything about it because we're so intimidated by the aggression and the lunacy of the advocates who are in favor of this. And the entire American media and virtually every institution in American life has been bullied into shutting up as children are sexually mutilated. And it's a moral crime. It should be a legal crime. It's beyond belief that this is actually happening. And, I think anyone running for office, anyone holding office, has a moral duty to call this out and to ban it immediately and to punish people who are doing it. No doctor should be allowed to sexually mutilate a child, period, ever. And those doctors should be charged for the crimes they're committing, period. And I just don't know why no one's saying it. But when you look at what's actually happening, you slow down and just take a look at it. There's no defending it.
Well, Paul McHugh from Johns Hopkins, who did some of the most groundbreaking studies of what happens with individuals who've gone through these transformative surgeries, hormone blockers, et cetera, and you pointed this out. I mean, the level of suicide of people who've gone through this procedure, post-puberty, years into their, quote, transition, that doesn't get discussed at all. At all.
Well, none of the details get discussed. And a lot of the details we couldn't put on television because they're too horrifying. We didn't want to put them on because they're too upsetting. The idea that you're born this way, really? But it's increased thousands of % in the last 2 years? No. This is the product of a sustained propaganda campaign on social media designed to lure children into this, and then they're sterilized and sexually mutilated. Like, why are we putting up with this?
Tucker, I want to thank you for doing this. I want everyone to be sure to catch this series called Transgressive, The Cult of Confusion. It's available on Fox Nation now. And Tucker, most importantly, just thank you for staying up with us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, I love it. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
I don't want to make it out like you go to bed at like 9 o'clock.